Good morning to everyone. How are you doing? Are you there? Can you listen to me?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good. So first of all, did you enjoy the yesterday session?
Yes, we enjoyed.
Great. Fine. So what are you going to do today on our project? So I sent you. You already had a clinical trial, randomized clinical trial that I sent you, the last one and last two that has been recently published on Lancet. Few minutes ago, you should have received also the supplementary material.
Mhm.
Because what I want to do now, I mean, is that we take the opportunity of this morning to read carefully, very carefully, the paper and the supplementary material. Why? Because what I would like to do in the afternoon is to try to discuss with you the methodology that has been used for this randomized control trial, and if the report is in line with the methodology, if you find any problem, which kind of problem, which is the main message that the article is giving to you, and so try to also critically discuss, let's say, the article, because I think this is a perfect example of several things. We will see later on in the afternoon. But sending to you also the supplementary material will give also another perspective, because the paper that is easily findable is the one you already had. Of course, you can also download directly from the Lancet website the supplementary material, but sometimes the supplementary material is something that we are not used to read so carefully, because it's supplementary, it's there. Maybe I can consult it, but it's not something that is not so interesting. But in my opinion, it's relevant when we want to critically read and interpret the results of a randomized control trial, to have also the opportunity to see the details of the protocols. That means the population that has been selected, the methods that has been used, the outcomes, the endpoints, and so on. So for I will be here, but for the next hour and a half, but hour is fine. I think you can just take your time to read carefully and take notes of all of let's say of all the aspects you think they are relevant for this article and the supplementary material. In the afternoon, we will discuss together, and we will try to see the strengths and also the weaknesses of this protocol and of the results of this protocol. Okay,
Okay.
do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will meet at 3
I
p.m.
will be here, so in case of any question or thing you want, I mean, I'm here in this video, so I will mute, but I will be here. So you can take your
Oh,
time to do whatever you want. I mean,
this
but
week.
let's say in the afternoon we can meet each other at about 2 o'clock. I think is the meeting.
Mhm.
And we can take the time together to discuss in details the methodological aspects that will be, I think, useful for all of us to critically interpret the results of this paper.
Mhm.
God, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
fine. So in case of any doubt, question, I'm here. Okay, but then but please work whenever you want. I mean, you can turn off the video. You can do whatever you want. I mean, I'm here, but in case of emergency, let's say. But if not, I mean, we can see each other directly this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Okay,
Okay.
great. See you later.
See you.
Teresa, can you hear us?
Yes, maybe just to reply to Dr. Animesh, it's 2 p.m. The second part, it's 2 p.m. European Central Time.
Of course, yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Hefner, do we, when we are critiquing it, do we follow some guidelines? Like yesterday, we were following the stroke guidelines. Do you want us to follow the consort guidelines?
The consort is fine, of course, yes. But I mean, I just wanted I would like to do it in the other way around, let's say. So to try to see, but you, of course, you already know the consort. It is fine. It's perfect because it's the guideline that is the reference guideline. But you can. Let's say read and then we can critically revise it because I think that this will help us in improve the methodology.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I see that there is a problem in the files. So Teresa, can you please send to email them the both of the files?
Okay, I will resend both of the files by email.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm not able to hear you.
Hello, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you just arrive now?
Yeah, I got the files and we are supposed to see the files and
Yeah, so if you got the two files, what we are going to do now is that I ask you to read carefully both the article and the supplementary material,
okay.
in order and try to also take notes on which are the main methodological, let's say, aspects of this clinical trial, and on the results that have been reported and also on how the results have been commented, let's say, because the idea is that in the second part of this meeting, we will discuss critically this article under several points of view and see if, let's say, the reporting of this article is in line with the results, and if the results are, if there is the results are positive, negative, if there is let's say, something more that can have been done in order to obtain better results or so on. So we will discuss later on in all these aspects, also depending on what will be your comments, of course, on the article. And I also sent you the supplementary material, because the supplementary material includes let's say, details also on additional results and on details on the protocol. So that is important methodologically in order to understand and critically read a randomized control trial. Okay.
Okay.
So I will be here in around, let's say, but you can work by yourself, and in case of any problem, doubt, you can ask me, interrupt me, no problem. Otherwise, we will see each other in the second part of the meeting, which will be at 2 p.m. Central European time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Enrico, excuse me. Tell me, please, so the main issues is to pay attention on methodology and results, right?
I think so. I think so. Because this is yeah, methodology and results. Because because we will see later on if the which will be the main problems also
Okay.
of this article. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Antonia, it's Enrico. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to
Hello.
meet you.
Okay, I saw that you just arrived. So
Yes.
what we are doing. So you should have received two files. One is the full article published on Lancet a few weeks ago on a randomized control trial that is called LUSTER-1 and LUSTER-2. And the other file is the supplementary material, so in which you have all the details of the protocols and the additional results and so on. what I would like to ask you and all your colleagues is to carefully and critically read the article and the supplementary material, trying to take notes of all the points that you would like to discuss later on, in particular referring to the methodology that has been followed and the results obtained and how the results have been commented and discussed, let's say. Because I think this is a good example on how the results of a randomized control trial could be depending on several aspects, so I would like to discuss it later on. So take your time. You can do it. All your colleagues are now reading and working on this paper. I'm here for any problem or any question whenever. Otherwise, I mean, we will see each other all together at 2 o'clock Central European time for discussing what you have read and all the paper and the aspects, and critically discuss the paper.
Okay, so if I have a question, can
I
write
mean,
on through chat?
you can or write whatever you want, or also turn on the microphone, and I'm here around. I mean, even if I mute and I turn off the camera, I'm here as well.
Thank you so much. So we will meet online at 2, right?
That's fine. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. See you later. Bye. Hello to everyone. Nice to meet you again.
Hello.
Hello. So you had time to read this material, long material that I give you. Of course, the supplementary material, as you saw, I mean, was also included the complete protocol that, of course, it's very in deep. But I mean, I think it was anyway useful to see the additional results, the additional methods used, and so on. So, first of all, does any one of you would like to start commenting on what is on what have you read? I mean, which kind of I mean, what did you think? What do you think about this study? If there is something that could be implemented in writing this study, or if everything is fine and so on.
I have one question about this study. I saw that there are a lot of exclusion criteria, 41 exclusion criteria in this study. And I have a question, how it can be generalized, the results of this study, how it could be generalized. I can't understand because they excluded more than half patients.
Yeah, that is absolutely an important and relevant question. And this is something that is a general problem of all the randomized control trials. So yesterday you were talking about observational trials that have some strengths, but also some limits. At the same time, also the randomized control trials have several strengths, let's say, somehow, but at the same time also several limits. One of the limits is the fact that the included population, study population, cannot completely reflect the real life population. So this is absolutely true, and that is why it is always important to let's say, evaluate the results of a randomized control trial for what it is, and not generalize it too much. Because I mean, it's always important to know that the randomized control trial is by definition in a very selected population of patients. Generally are the best patients ever, so let's somehow that are also very clever in order to be able to stay in the study, to fill up a lot of questionnaires, to perform spirometry very perfectly, and so on. And this is not the reality, of course. So this is something, a good point, absolutely a good point. But this is, let's say, not only typical of this specific clinical trial, but is, let's say, a characteristic of all the clinical trials. Yeah, sorry, I removed this one because actually I'm in a closed room, so you can see also my face, and for me it's easier. It's a good comment, and this is one of the main characteristic of clinical trials. On the other side, if we want to try to compare randomized control trials and observational trials, observational studies may have the bias of estimating the effect of a given treatment because of many other biases that are present in an observational, in the real life settings. So the randomized control trials are useful in order to prove the efficacy in the perfect population you would like to treat. Then real life studies are useful, very useful, to give the evidence that what has been investigated and proven effective in a randomized control trial can be translated in the real life. So I think it's the balance between these two kind of studies that gives you the real message, final message. But we all know that a drug is put in the market after randomized control trials. So we always have to consider the so-called phase 4 of the clinical research, so the pharmacosurveillance, as a relevant moment, because pharmacosurveillance is not only taking care about the adverse events that can be present in treating larger population in real life, but it's also re-evaluate the effect, the so-called effectiveness, not the efficacy, but the effectiveness, which is the efficacy in real life, so the efficacy of the drug in a real life setting. But this is absolutely relevant. If we look at the exclusion criteria of this study, yes, it was a really long list of exclusion criteria. It is true. I must say that this is generally the same list that is used for most of the clinical trials. So generally, clinical trials in respiratory field, the exclusion criteria includes the fact that the patient was not treated with any other biologicals before, or any other investigational drugs before, or in a short time. The patients are not affected by cancer or by inflammatory disease other than respiratory disease, and so on. Of course, these are patients that they exist because otherwise the randomized control trial was not possible, but they are not the 100% of patients that are present. Also, the smoking history is really relevant, of course, because even asthmatics are still smoking a lot. I mean, so it's not only a problem in other respiratory disease. But this is absolutely a good comment. I like it. And as far as the inclusion criteria, what do you say? Do you have any comment on the inclusion criteria? So on why which are the patients that have been selected? So I can start. Then maybe you can interrupt me and comment, of course. The inclusion criteria, as you see here, derives from what is the theoretical population that may benefit better for this drug. In a specific case, the drug that has been investigated has an anti-inflammatory effect, okay, because it is fevipiprant, that it has a strong anti-inflammatory, anti-eosinophilic inflammatory effect. This is the background, the pharmacological background behind. So they wanted to investigate the efficacy of this drug in a population that is a severe population, because they selected GINA 4 and 5. Okay, so it's a severe population. They already pre-stratified the patients according to their blood eosinophils. So they wanted to have a population, to have two groups that can be comparable, even in terms of number, in patients with low blood eosinophils and higher blood eosinophils. This means that they really probably predicted that the possible effect would be higher in patients with higher eosinophils, and this is quite a good trick, let's say, in order to find positive results when in an investigational drug that has been never tested in such a large number of patients. So of course it's relevant. I'm just looking also again at the article. I mean, other inclusion criteria. Well, of course, this has been set in patients 12 years and older, and it's fine. So they decided to have even adolescents. What is something that could be probably commented is the fact that they decided to select patients with impaired lung function, because they decided to have patients that had to have FEV1 up to 80% or up to 90%, but up to, that means that the result of FEV1 higher than 80% in an adult patient was an exclusion criteria. It was not possible to include this patient. Do you think this had a relevance in the outcomes that they found or not? And if yes, why and so?
I guess it could make some difficulty in finding, for sure, that it's not easy to find so many patients with such criteria.
Yes, I agree with you. And this is absolutely a good comment. And also specifically talking about a drug that is directly targeting the airway inflammation, not directly targeting the smooth muscle. Okay, so it's an anti-inflammatory treatment. It's not a bronchodilator. So this can be really challenging for choosing patients with this, and also challenging in getting good results. This is a comment that is absolutely relevant in my opinion. It is probably, but this is just my comment, that this is one of the reasons for which the results were not so huge. So the effect was not so huge, because they selected patients that probably were, for sure more severe, but probably a phenotype of those patients that may not benefit so much for this specific target treatment. So this is something that is absolutely important. And what I wanted to point to your attention is that when we read the results of a study in the format of a manuscript, of a paper, we may really understand also why some results are more positive or less positive, more or less enhanced. In my opinion, this is something relevant. The decision of choosing these inclusion criteria, probably, I was not in the steering committee, so I do not know, but I mean, probably has been discussed a lot, and it is something that is often discussed. I'm in the steering committee of other randomized control trials, and each single inclusion and exclusion criteria is discussed a lot, because of course it may change the results, because it changed the population, and so it's absolutely relevant. I do not know why they finally decided to include only patients with altered lung function, particularly speaking of patients with severe asthma and severe eosinophilic asthma, because they wanted to have severe eosinophilic asthma, in which there is anyway a good proportion of patients that are very severe, despite the fact that the lung function is normal under the treatment, under the regular treatment. So they excluded a part of patients that may probably have a benefit. So it is absolutely important, this comment.
I had a comment. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess asthmatics who have a decreased lung function, they are also at higher risk of exacerbation, right? So I think
Yes, that is generally speaking true. But if you try to look at the population of patients that are treated with anti-IL-5. So because here I say anti-IL-5 treatments, biologics, because this drug, the fevipiprant, was, presented, and it is presented also here, just like a sort of alternative of anti-IL-5. Okay. So the population that is eligible for anti-IL-5 is generally a population with frequent exacerbations, frequent asthma exacerbations. But if you look both at clinical trials and the real life reports, you find a lot of patients that have very high exacerbation rates without having an altered lung function. So it is true. It is probably the reason they used to choose this cutoff, but was probably too strong, because they excluded those patients that anyway are frequent exacerbators, even without an altered lung function. Probably they use this criteria to decide to strengthen the population to a more severe patients. I do not say that these are not severe patients. They are severe patients, probably are very severe patients, but probably they excluded, let's say, subphenotypes that are very inflamed, but less involved in the lung function. So, and anyway, those patients are frequent exacerbators. So I say exacerbation because, as you can see, the main outcome, the main endpoint was the reduction in exacerbation. So, of course, this is something that should be considered also. And this is a good point to comment.
Just another thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, don't worry. I speak a lot. So if you want, you can stop me, interrupt me whenever you want. I prefer that it is a dialogue.
So I just wanted to ask your opinion regarding this, because they were looking not only at exacerbations, but I think they were also looking at moderate to severe exacerbations, and they had defined it as, those exacerbations where people had to stay in the emergency department for more than 24 hours, or they had to be hospitalized. So probably this population where the lung function is decreased, probably these are the patients, if they have exacerbation, if they go to the ED, probably they would not be having they might not have a moderate to severe exacerbation. They might just go to the ED, get a steroid, and then come back. So what I'm saying is that probably looking at the outcome, people having moderate to severe exacerbations, it was probably, it must have influenced them in choosing that population where the lung function must have been, less than normal.
This is this is absolutely a good comment. I agree. This is probably something that has to, led to choose this population. That's true. That's true, absolutely. But so my question is, what was a good endpoint, was a good outcome for this specific drug, the moderate to severe exacerbation, or was it better to have a reduction in exacerbation ever, and not only the severe ones, the moderate to severe ones? Well, it's something that I think the authors had discussed even later, absolutely, just after the getting the results, because this is a good point. You may expect that those patients with poorer lung function are also those who may have more severe exacerbations. The final results were not so, let's say, encouraging, let's say. So probably the main target of this drug can change over time, and probably I think that if I was in the leading the clinical research of the company, my suggestion was, okay, probably the drug is effective, but we tested in the wrong population, in the wrong way, because we have to expand the population or to choose another population. Just to tell you again a similar example, there was about anti-IL-5 for mepolizumab. The first studies of mepolizumab in the 90s, in the late of 90s, beginning of 2000, have been done in an unselected population of asthmatics. Unselected means that they were not selected for the severity, and they were not selected for the levels of eosinophilic inflammation ever, both in the sputum or in the blood and so on. And the final result was that there was a dramatic reduction in the blood eosinophils without any significant effect. Why? Because they tested in not the correct population. There was a completely change, and this really changed also the way of considering clinical trials for asthma, when in 2008 or 9 or something similar, from the Leicester group in UK and from a Canadian group, they together published two very similar papers on New England Journal of Medicine, in which they were testing mepolizumab in a population of very selected patients, in patients with severe and eosinophilic asthma. So patients that were having high eosinophil despite the treatment and were frequent exacerbated. And the results were amazing. And they completely changed the way of thinking about anti-IL-5 treatment that has been abandoned for several years because of the first results that were not targeted probably to the right population. So this is something, in my opinion, similar. So they tested this drug, fevipiprant, in a population that was probably not the best one, and probably they should redefine how to think about these drugs, because abandoning this drug, leaving aside this drug is really a pity, because a certain effect is present, but probably stratifying the patients better, they can find even the best responders. So, but this is absolutely a good point, in my opinion. What I want you to let's say also to comment on you is that, well, generally speaking, of a randomized control trial, the main, let's say, idea behind the randomized control trial is the fact that you have to compare, let's say, an active treatment versus another treatment, generally a placebo, so a non-active treatment. You can also, of course, compare an investigational drug or an investigational treatment in general with another standard of care treatment, for example, so the gold standard for the treatment. So this is the general idea behind, and of course you have to follow also a good methodology in order to create a randomized control trial. This trial is perfect in methodology theoretically, because the methodology is perfect. What is behind probably not was not perfect was the outcome chosen, the population that has been chosen, and the match between the two, because the final results tells that you can imagine a result, an effect. You can see an effect, but this effect is not significant different, and also particularly is not clinically relevant. Because what I want you to comment is also, I will arrive later on, I mean, but in the results, we see that there was a reduction that was quite low of the exacerbation rate, both in the overall population and the two groups of patients with higher and lower blood eosinophils. This reduction, for example, I have here 10-14% of reduction in the overall population of exacerbation rate. It means that if patients had the previous exacerbation rate of 2.5, two free episodes of exacerbation the previous year, it means that you reduce of 0.2. What does it mean? It means that one patient out of 10 had a reduction of one single exacerbation per year, but all the others didn't feel any effect. So it is not relevant in terms of clinically relevant, because it's something that is, I mean, even if they had reached they didn't reach it, but even if they had reached a statistical significance, so a p-value less than 0.05, with such results, the result is still poor anyway, because it's something that is not perceivable in a way in the patients. And the fact it is like this is confirmed by the fact that the quality of life and the control of asthma didn't change, that are more personal, so the more let's say subjective way of feeling the disease. And of course, these are generally in a randomized control trial, the patient's reported outcomes, so quality of life, asthma control, and so on, are not the primary outcome, because they may be too subjective, or they may anyway depend on several other variables, but they are often present as a secondary outcome, also because it gives you a better interpretation of the results. Because of course, if there is a good concordance between the main outcome, that can be, for example, the reduction in exacerbation, and the secondary outcomes, the improvement, huge improvement in quality of life, well, the goal has been really met, because I mean it's perfect. It's a drug that is able to reduce the clinical relevant outcome, and at the same time improving the quality of life of a patient. It is perfect. Not all the drugs works like this, unfortunately, but anyway. So speaking specifically on this trial, the design of the trial is quite classic. So because you can see there is in this case actually well, there are two trials, okay, but they had very identical study design, so we can think about it as one single study, even if they are not single studies, and this is something that I want to comment to you later on. But it is quite classical, because there are different treatment arms, in this case, they chose, depending on the results of the phase 2, they decided to test both 150 milligram and the 450 milligram as dosage against placebo. So it's treatment against placebo, which is the main way. So it is quite classical. There isn't any cross sectional change in the treatment. So it is, let's say, the classical way of performing a randomized control trial, comparing in a blind way, in the randomized way, the effect of a treatment compared to a non-active treatment, so a placebo.
I have a question actually about this. I'm sorry to interrupt because this is related with what you just explained. Because in this trial, they choose of the dose of 150 milligram and 450 milligram, while from the second phase of the study, the studies use the dose of 500 milligrams once daily or 225 milligram twice daily. So I'm just curious why they choose this dose, which doesn't, really replicate previous study.
Thank you. Another absolutely good comment. I was going to arrive later on, but it's fine to comment it now because it's perfect. This is another point that can have an influence in the final results. It often happens in these cases that the phase 2 and the phase 3 studies are actually designed temporally, often at the same time. So they are designed during the same period by different people, and the two studies start in different moments, but with the protocol already written and difficult to change. So it can happen like this. I don't know if this is the case, but it happened again for example, for other drugs, that the phase 2 dosages were not exactly the same that were used in the phase 3. In my opinion, this is methodologically not correct, because you cannot consider a drug only because the efficacy of a drug only related to the drug itself, but also to the amount of drug that you give to the patients, of course. So I mean, also to the dose. It's not only the molecule, but it's also the dose. So it's absolutely a good point. I personally do not know why they decided to change slightly, but probably in giving anyway a further reason for not so effective treatment. In fact, the authors try to comment in the discussion, in the supplementary material and so on, that they had better results in 450 than 150. We still do not know what would happen using the dosage that have been used for the phase 2. So it is methodologically not relevant, in my opinion. Yes, not important, not correct, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I mean, usually investigators conduct phase 3 after having the result of phase 2, right? Because they can be sure that this drug is worth to be investigated more into phase 3. So the dose then should, should according to what was tested in the phase 2. I mean, logically, I don't know whether it is correct or not.
No. It is correct. It is correct. I mean, methodologically, it should have the same methodology or similar methodology. No, it's a absolutely a good point. I take it, and thanks for having putting in the discussion. Anyone else have something to comment on this or their idea?
Once more, I think about the measurement tool that they use to assess the outcome. Because here they use the blood eosinophil, and they actually already wrote it down in their limitation section, that probably the blood eosinophil doesn't reflect the best the sputum eosinophil. That's why also then maybe the results doesn't really describe or show the real effect of the drugs and so on. Yeah, but it's very difficult also to find the perfect how to say, what is this name, the perfect indicator, not indicator,
Okay, the perfect biomarker. Or
yeah, biomarker, that's true, to show the effect. Yeah, when we cannot use the perfect biomarker, then the result will be not really describe the real result as well.
Yes. They discuss it in the limitation, and it's true because, well, for this point, I mean, I understand that they decided not to use sputum eosinophilia for selecting the patient because they had to obtain large numbers. So it may be difficult, and also not easy transferable to the real life later on when the drug will be approved, because if the selection of patients should be done on a technique that is not widely used and easy to use, the final result is that you may have an approved drug in the market that will be difficult to use because no one can select and then the eligible patients. So I understand that for the phase 2 they used a more specific biomarker of the airway, such as sputum eosinophilia, because they wanted to prove that the drug was safe and effective in a small population and so on. On the phase 3, the large numbers, they decided to use a surrogate biomarker, such as blood eosinophils, and this may have been maybe a limitation. Actually, absolutely can be a limitation, and probably could have also have an effect in the final results. Let's say that anyway, if a drug that is being selected for a severe population, clinically speaking, so not biomarkers, but clinically speaking, a severe population, and is not effective because they selected the patients and they stratified the patients according to the blood eosinophil, well, that means that probably this drug is not really effective in real life, because otherwise you should really over stratify the patients when you are selecting the patient for your daily treatment, because you have to have those patients with severe asthma with this certain specific level of eosinophils, and then with less than 80% of FEV1. So, well, it would be difficult, as has been said before, to select a patient. So I think they wanted to stratify the population in these two levels because they wanted to try to obtain, let's say, in advance, a population which was better responder than the other. So they expected probably to have a better response in patients with higher eosinophils, and probably they hoped to find anyway a good response even in the other ones. But this can have probably a final effect, considering that the definition of eosinophilia was made with a very surrogate biomarkers, that is blood eosinophils, and not direct biomarker. What I'm curious and is also that it seems that even the levels of another local biomarker, such as XL nitric oxide, was not correlated with the level of response. So, well, XL nitricoxide is not exactly is not exactly airway eosinophils, but the relationship between the airway eosinophilia and FeNO is anyway a good correlation. So I would have expected that the higher was FeNO, the higher was the response, and this was not the case. So again, probably the problem was not only on biomarkers, but was more on the selection of the population at the beginning. That was probably excluding those patients with very high inflammation, eosinophilic inflammation, even without having a lower lung function. So that subphenotype, that is, for example, the phenotype of those patients with severe eosinophilic asthma and nasal polyposis associated. A large proportion of these patients doesn't have poor lung function. So a large proportion of these patients have been excluded, and at least theoretically, they were a good population to be treated, because they were a population of patients with very intense eosinophilic inflammation that can be targeted with abiprubart. So, so I think that that also this let's say not clear relationship between FeNO results and the efficacy of the drug can be explained by the fact that a subset of population have been excluded in advance. And this is methodologically relevant because you may understand, it is quite clear that they invested so many money in making these trials, and getting a bad result it's something that is really problematic for a company like Novartis in this case. I mean, because they really have problems. What I want to also to let's say to discuss a bit is that I think it is quite clear for all of us that the results were not so nice. I mean, the results were mostly negative, let's say, because the primary outcome was not achieved. Some of the secondary outcome were slightly achieved only in subpopulations. But despite of that, if we do a sort of a reading exercise of this article, and we try to limit the article in let's say the attention to this article at different levels, you will see that you will have different perceptions. Because if you only read the title, it's effectiveness of abiprubart in reducing exacerbations in patients. Well, one reads the title and say, well, probably it works, because it's the effectiveness only. It doesn't say it does not works. It is effective, which is correct actually, because it is the aim of the study, to study the effectiveness. But you may think about the fact that the drug is working. If you read only the title and the abstract, again, you have a lot of data, of course, and the final conclusion is that although neither trial showed a statistical significant reduction in asthma exacerbation after adjusting multiple testing, consistent and modest reduction in exacerbation rates were observed. What does it mean? Nothing, in my opinion, because methodologically speaking, we are talking about the outcomes that you predefined. If the outcome has been not reached, the effect of this drug has not been proven. But anyway, the article says, the conclusion says, well, it doesn't work, but it works. Well, that is confounding. So that's why I chose this specific article, because I think, particularly in let's say, in this period of science in which we have available tons of articles, tons of like literature, scientific literature, and easy to access to scientific literature, and also easy as to assess, let's say, networks, even scientific social network that distributes the informations. If the information that is distributed is only the title or the title of the abstract, what you may perceive, if you are not, let's say, a clever person that goes after the abstract, is that, well, nice, we have a new drug. Unfortunately, the results say exactly the contrary, that this drug seems not working, at least for this trial. So methodologically, I think one good point is to think, always to be very strict in interpreting the results of any study, and in particular a randomized control trial, just staying on what is declared. So they declared, they tested this drug in three different arms, 2 dosages versus placebo. They pre-stratified the population according to eosinophils. They studied the efficacy, and they defined the efficacy according to the primary outcome, because the efficacy is defined only according to the primary outcome. And the primary endpoint was not reached. This is the main message that should arrive. Then all the other are explorative secondary outcomes. So something that will help you in interpret better the primary outcome, both in positive and in negative way. While here there was a tendency, let's say, in strengthening the slight good results towards the bad news. So and this is something that when we read an article, we always have to be careful in reading, because otherwise we can be superficial and think that the results was exactly the opposite of what has been written, and so on.
I had a question regarding the methodology.
Yeah.
So they had, in the figure 1, they had actually mentioned about the run-in period. So my understanding of the run-in period, figure 1 in the main article, and behind that, below that, they're actually written that the study included a 2-week screening period, a run-in period for 2 to 6 weeks to accommodate patients with asthma exacerbations, and to collect baseline data for efficacy, and to measure compliance with a e-diary. So I just wanted to know, they have also given a placebo in this 2 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What is the
reason? This is important. Well, okay, of course, the 2 weeks screening period is the period in which the patient is identified. Okay, let's say is identified, treated with the treatment that is the baseline treatment. So for in this case, the GINA 4 and GINA 4 and GINA 5 or GINA 5 treatment. So okay. Then they start the running period. The running period is to, let's say, to measure, to assess if there is a significant change also in any of the parameters, any of the variables, giving to a patient a placebo. So officially starting the treatment actually with the patient, the new treatment, but not doing any treatment, doing an inactive treatment. So in this way, you may have a period in which all the patients have been treated with placebo in order to see if there is a placebo effect compared to the standard of care. And if there is let's say, an improvement, such an improvement in certain parameters that put the patient outside of the study, because that put the patient outside of the selected inclusion criteria. Because if during the run-in period the patient is reaching, taking a placebo, is reaching, for example, 85% of FEV1, the patient was outside of the study, was not randomized. And this was in order to really select the patients that are, let's say, constantly in the phenotype that they decided to treat somehow. Okay, that is so in order to reduce the placebo effect, because you start giving only placebo, you are measuring somehow the placebo effect, and when the placebo effect is high in each single patient, this patient is not randomizable, so he cannot start the treatment. And so only those patients for which the placebo effect was negligible, or anyway not so relevant, can start the treatment. And this is a good trick in order to select patients that are very similar to them, I mean, very homogeneous to each other, and not subjected to a large variation just because of placebo. Of course, the variation there is because of the intrinsic nature of asthma, and this is the possibility. So there is also the possibility that some patients that would be perfect to stay there were excluded, were not randomized, because the normal, let's say, variation of both lung function and symptoms of asthma is present. But a period of 2 to 6 weeks, it means a good period, let's say, in order to understand if this let's say this variation, if it's only positive variation and not negative, and not again negative variation. These are patients that had a large placebo effect, and so they should be removed from the rest of the trial in order to really minimize the placebo effect. So this is a good
practice.
Point.
Do all RCTs do that? Because
no, not all necessarily, but many. Not all, but many, because it's let's say really a good trick in order to get a more homogeneous population. It's not mandatory for clinical research, for randomized controlled trials, but it's a good way to select a more homogeneous population. It's absolutely a good comment.
May I ask question?
Yeah.
For example, in this abstract, in the interpretation, they remove the words of modest, so only consistent reductions. Whether it's more reasonable to put there, because I can imagine when this is very big trial, multi-center, with a big money involving a lot of patient, and the result is not too good, they need to put something more interesting for reader to read and for the journal to publish, because I don't know, maybe if the result is more positive, they can publish in an EGM, for example, or in Lancet, not only Lancet Respiratory Medicine. I don't know, but I can understand their need to put something, softer for the result to be not really bad. So maybe what is if they remove the modest here, because the reduction is actually few, not modest. So if they remove modest, so maybe it's more it's better for the what do you think?
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. But well, of course, we all the articles are published because of a strict peer review process. So probably, and the Lancet, publishing on Lancet, it means having very good reviewers also, apart from a very good, let's say, management in general of the paper, and it probably I think also each single word has been somehow evaluated by the reviewers in order to to suggest to maintain it or not. So I mean, the modest reduction is probably the consistent and moderate reduction. Probably was let's say a compromise between what the authors want to say and what the reviewers suggested to write. So because so the consistent was more on the author side, modest was probably more on the reviewer side. And but I mean I do not know what happened behind, but it's possible, yes. Then well. We discussed, and it's fine, the endpoints and so the outcomes. We said, of course, that there are always secondary outcomes and exploratory outcomes, endpoints, and choosing these endpoints, as we said before, is useful in order to better describe the effect of a drug, because the main outcome is the goal you have to achieve in order to say, yes, the drug, it works. The secondary endpoints are those who are describing you the ancillary somehow effects. So all the other effects generally are on more on patients' reported outcomes, or as it is here, also in lung function that has been historically moved from primary outcome to secondary outcome, because this is something that already changed in the history of randomized control trials in the last 20 years. Because if you look at the older RCT, you will see that the primary outcome was often the lung function, but when we particularly in the new era of biological drugs, or in these cases, this is not a biological drug, but this is anyway an innovative treatment, the main outcome changed completely from the FEV1 that is relevant, of course, but directly going to a more clinical and very relevant endpoint. It is the exacerbation, for example, or for other drugs, the reduction, for example, in the use of oral corticosteroids. So, for example, all the biologics used for asthma demonstrated in specific randomized control trial the reduction of OCS. Here they decided to keep as a secondary outcome both lung function and patients' reported outcomes, in particular asthma control and asthma quality of life. And it is something that really helps you in better describing the final results, because again, if this drug was able to strongly reduce the exacerbation, so if the primary endpoint was met, dramatically met, and we even without any of the secondary outcomes, so even without improving FEV1, asthma control, or asthma quality of life, well, you can say that this trial is a positive trial, but with some limitations, because of course the quality of life and the asthma control was not improved, and so on. If there is a concordance between the primary outcome and the secondary outcome, well, this is a wonderful result, of course, because all the outcomes are present. In this case, we have a negative result for the primary outcome and a slightly positive result for certain secondary outcomes. That gives you the idea that again, that the drugs has a certain effect. It's true. It's correct. The comment they made that the modest effect there is a consistent and modest effect, but probably again there was a methodological problem in the selection of population, because otherwise you should achieve both of the outcomes. Or the second possibility, this is a good drug for improving daily symptoms, but not for reducing exacerbation. And so it should be stratified anyway in another kind of population, because again, you cannot consider a drug that is working, improving quality of life, improving lung function, but not reducing exacerbation as a drug to treat severe asthma. Maybe you can use it for less severe asthma, so moderate to moderate asthma. So the results, in my mind, of the two primary and secondary outcome endpoints, let me think that this drug has been tested in not in the perfect population. So and it can be from one side because they probably excluded a priori some patients in the severe asthma that could be the best responders, or on the other side that this is not a drug able really to reduce exacerbation, but of achieving other effects, and so probably is not the suitable drug for severe asthmatics, but for another class of asthmatics. This is something that should induce the authors and the company to rethink about the drug, and if they want to reinvest or still invest on this drug, they must change the target population from one side or to the other one, but they must change the target population in order to retest the drug in a different population. Again, the example we made before with mepolizumab in unselected population. At that time, GlaxoSmithKline decided not to invest anymore on mepolizumab. Then finally, some authors demonstrated that there was a huge effect in patients in a selected population of patients, and the investment changed. So we will see what will happen with this drug. I know that they achieved. I had rumors that they achieved better results in other studies targeted on patients with nasal polyposis. So probably again the two of these studies, so this negative result and the positive results of the other study, will give us a better idea on which is the population. So, but anyway, choosing an outcome is relevant, and interpreting the results of a randomized controlled trial should be done strictly on the let's say on the hierarchy of the endpoints that have been predefined. So the result is positive or negative depending on the primary endpoint. Then,
Enrico, may I ask you something?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's also interesting about age. They posted that eligible persons were aged 12 years or older with uncontrolled asthma, and also patients aged 18 years and older. So, I mean, if they, for example, have been taking patients, of course, whose age was more, so exacerbation level and result also could be more different from this one which you got.
And I don't remember the details, but I'm looking now in the supplementary material. They also tried to stratify according to the age. Let me check. Analysis of exacerbation. Yes, and they actually, it's true, they actually saw seems to have better results in those patients with older than 18. So again,
also is a little bit.
So again, probably including adolescents was a challenging idea at the beginning, and they fight against this challenge, because probably the final results could have been affected also by this, because That's absolutely a good point. That is another piece in selecting the patients. So no, that is absolutely relevant. Then they defined also some exploratory points, and these are general other, let's say again, are those endpoints in which you do not expect a priori to have an important effect, but anyway they will help you in describing better the final results, because they give you and generate hypotheses on the motivation for which a result is positive or negative, and this is absolutely relevant. What else?
Why did they have two trials? You were saying that you would comment on that.
I think that is another important stuff, and also an important comment, in my opinion, that has been done, that they should be done, because well, they decided to do, I think it's just just let's say a matter of selecting different investigators in different countries in the trial. So it is there isn't a specific, let's say, motivation for which doing totally identical trial, apart from the fact that of let's say practical reasons to manage the data in specific, let's say, dividing the countries in different participations. And if you look at the list of the countries, actually there is actually a slight difference between those participating in the first trial and last one and the last two. So this is probably the real motivation. But what is quite interesting is that particularly when they talk about in the supplementary material, they talk about those slight improvements in the secondary outcome. They do it putting together the two populations, okay? Because and putting together the population of the two trials. This is methodologically not correct, because anyway, if you define a protocol that is different, even if practically identical, but anyway with two different, let's say, processes, you should not put together automatically the data. This is something that could be done later on in systematic reviews, in meta-analysis and so on, but not in directly presenting the data. That is why the data are presented as separated, correctly separated data in the main article, but in the supplementary material they put it together, the data, they merged the data, and they found some positive results. But this cannot be acceptable in terms of, let's say, correct methodology, because formally they are two different studies. And you can present them together discussing the results separated, but you cannot completely merge the data and say, well, merging the data, the results are there. If we separate them, we do not find them. Okay, so that is something relevant. The other thing is that, of course, in presenting the data, they present, of course, also those data that are significant different. But again, the difference in even if significant should be also clinically relevant. and not only reaching a p-value less than 0.5, because it's important to achieve also something that is really important for the patient. What else? I think that this article was a good example of a good methodology, because that is perfect methodology. But even if you have a good methodology, you may fail to obtain the results that you expect. And this can be due to the fact that the efficacy is really not achievable, and so the drug doesn't work. This is possible. And anyway, it's, even if in this case it's absolutely important that they published it, because this is another big bias. I mean, most of the many negative results are not published, while in this case, for randomized control trials in particular, is absolutely relevant that also negative trials are published, because otherwise there will be investment in a specific treatment in a specific subpopulation that will result negative also in subsequent trials. And so it will be important to know the negative results. And that is the why all the trials must be registered in specific repositories such as clinicaltrials.gov and so on, that are public, so you can see the advancement of these trials, and you can also read the results when available. And you can also check, because if this result was not published, and if the authors decided not to publish these negative results, the fact that the trial has been conducted, it has been completed, and the data have been collected is present in the repository. So these, of course, put suspect on the authors and on the company and so on, that there is some problem that they do not want to publish. So it's important to publish also negative results, and the fact that there is the existence and, let's say, the importance of these repositories for clinical trials stands exactly in this. So that also negative results can be detected somehow. So you can detect them because they do not publish, but they finish the article. So they finish the collection of data, and so you can ask directly to the authors, why don't you publish your results if you finish the collection? And this is, as I was saying, and then I think we can close. I mean, because we discussed a lot, and you were very, very on the point. So it was nice for me to chat with you. But I think that this article is a good example on a very good methodology that may not result in what they expect. Anyway, published on a very prestigious journal. But publishing this article, of course, the article starts to be commented between each other, between us here, but also, of course, officially commented, receiving letters, comments, and so on. And I think that what we noticed before, that if we read the paper in using the different levels of attention to the paper, we will find different things. And so my final suggestion is that always, of course, not limit to read the abstract, always read the entire article, always be critical anyway. I mean, even if there is a good result, of course, even more if there is a good result presented, be critical. Be critical, it means try to think exactly as you did, to think the population selected is correct. There is a problem. There are patients that are not the real life patients we are using. The treatment allocation is correct. Why do they did the run-in period or not? Where the population characteristics, the one I expect to be the good one for this treatment, were the primary outcome reached, and if yes or not, why? The secondary outcome are not reached, yes, no, the exploratory ones. How do the authors do present the results? How do they comment it? Are they honest in commenting, or they strengthen too much these results compared to the other ones? So this is, I mean, just the let's say the suggestion that I have. So always be critical. So this is the most relevant thing. Always be critical, not because they are trying to lie to you. Absolutely not. But because it's the way the science goes. I mean, thinking critically, and it means that you are able to interpret it better, the message, and probably also improve the results of this. Because, as we said before, we just discussing between each other without knowing each apart, nothing apart the article that has been published, we already defined some possible problems that can be possible solutions if corrected. No, so and so it is. We will see. Maybe in the next years we can discuss the similar article in a different population. It will be very nice, so we can compare it. But it doesn't depend directly on us. So, guys, it was very nice for me to stay with you this time. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I hope you will enjoy also the rest of the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have one question, just a short one? I noticed in the protocol, in the supplement protocol, they cover some writings with black cover. Is it allowed to do it?
Let me check, because I didn't notice. They covered something. Okay, yes.
48, for example, you can go to the page.
Yeah, but I think that because there is something covered at the end of each page, I think it's just because they were the numbers of authorization numbers or internal numbers of Novartis or something similar. Yes, it is efficacy, safety, will be prior. Well, it's true. There are some parts that are that have been blocked. Well, it should be checked on. It is a good question. I don't know why they covered something. Probably it's something that has been evaluated mainly for internal reasons and not for for internal questions, reasons related to the company and not for really scientific purposes. But I do not know. Really do not know. So. It's a good. You were very good in identifying this, and it is something that, well, it's published, so it can be asked. So it's something that it can be said. Well, okay, it's there. We can contact the authors and say, why is the product? What was written there? So it is something, and that can be diffused. And so this is nice of the science, that it is really an open discussion generally, even when there's something that seems to be not so clear. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Have a nice afternoon and evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.